The alien marketplace buzzed with strange voices and blinking lights. Creatures from 100 worlds walked the dusty paths, their eyes glowing, their armor shining. In the center of it all stood a round metal stage, lit with beams of red and gold. The auction was about to begin. A loud voice echoed across the crowd, calling buyers from every corner of the galaxy. "This next item is special," the auctioneer said. A tall, thin alien with 3 arms and a grin too wide to be friendly. Captured on the edge of wild space, never trained, never broken, the crowd leaned in. Curious, then they saw her. She stood in a cage of blue energy. Silent but fierce, chains wrapped her arms. But her eyes were sharp like knives. Her skin shimmered with alien colors, part silver, part violet, hair wild, face dirty, but something about her made everyone take a step back. She did not look afraid. She looked angry. "This is no ordinary slave," the auctioneer continued. "She bit off a guard's ear, escaped 3 times, and speaks no known language." The crowd began to murmur. Some laughed, some shook their heads. "She is dangerous," someone whispered. "Not worth the credits," said another. No one raised a hand. Even the boldest buyers stayed silent. They could feel if this girl was trouble. Unpredictable, wild, not safe to keep, not safe to sell. She scanned the faces watching her. Her lips curled in disgust. She banged her chains against the energy wall and shouted something no one understood. A sound full of pain and fire. The crowd flinched. The auctioneer looked nervous now, sweating from his forehead. "Come now," he said quickly. "Who will take the risk?" 100 credits. 50-10. Silence then, from the back of the crowd. A single hand rose. It was a human, a young man in worn boots and a long black coat. Dusty from travel, no armor, no bodyguards, no fear. He had been standing there the whole time, watching quietly. Now his hand was up and he did not lower it. The auctioneer blinked, confused. "Sir, are you serious?" The human nodded once, calm and clear. 1 credit, he said. Laughter exploded across the crowd. A single credit. Was this man mad? Some shouted jokes. Others just stared, waiting for him to take it back. But he didn't. He just kept his hand up. The auctioneer shrugged. No other bids. Going once, going twice. He hit the button and the cage lowered. "Sold," he said, almost in disbelief. To the human, guards unlocked the cage. Stepping back quickly, the girl didn't move at first. Just stared at the man who bought her. Then, slowly, she stepped out of the cage. The chains clinking around her feet, she walked straight to him, stood only a foot away and looked into his eyes. The crowd held its breath, waiting for her to strike. But she didn't. He looked back at her, calm, steady. He didn't speak. Didn't flinch, just nodded and turned toward his ship. She followed him, without a word. People stared as they disappeared into the shadows. No one could understand it. Why had a human bought the most dangerous alien girl in the auction? Why for only 1 credit? What did he see that they didn't? Some said he was crazy. Some said he was planning something dark. Others believed something else, that the human had seen pain behind the girl's eyes, not rage, and maybe, just maybe. He thought she could be saved, but only one thing was certain. That day, something strange happened, something the galaxy had never seen before. A human raised his hand for someone no one else wanted. And he never lowered it. What would happen next? No one knew, but the story had already begun. And it would shake the stars. The human ship was small, old, and full of scratches. But it was fast and quiet, floating through the stars like a ghost. Inside, the wild alien girl sat on the floor, her back against the wall. Eyes cold and sharp, the chains were off now. But her hands stayed close to her sides, like claws ready to strike. He didn't say much. He offered her water. She kicked the cup across the room. He brought food. She threw it away, still. He didn't get angry. He just watched her with the same calm face. The ship flew deeper into the unknown, stars blinking outside the window like tiny fires. She watched them, her jaw tight, her body tense. Her name, her planet, her language, he didn't know any of it. She hadn't spoken since the auction. Not a single word, but she never looked away from him. He sat on the pilot's seat, tapping a few buttons, then stood up and said, "You can sleep here," pointing to a small bed in the corner. She didn't move. He waited, then walked away, leaving the room with only soft lights and silence. Time passed slowly. She didn't blink, didn't close her eyes. Hours later, the human returned, holding a blanket and a soft light. He placed them near her feet, careful not to come too close. Then he lay down on the cold floor across the room, closed his eyes and breathed deeply. He slept. Even with a wild alien girl only a few feet away. She didn't understand him. Why wasn't he afraid? Why didn't he lock her up? Why didn't he guard his throat while he slept? Midnight came, the engines hummed, and a soft red glow filled the ship. Suddenly, she stood up, quiet as a shadow. She moved toward him slowly. Step by step, her breath low, her eyes sharp. One more step, and she was standing right over him. Staring down, he looked so weak, so easy to hurt. She raised her hand. Fingers curled like claws, but something stopped her. He looked peaceful, not like a captor, not like a slave owner, more like someone trying to help. Her hand trembled, then dropped to her side. She turned away and sat down again, her arms wrapped around her knees. She didn't sleep. She just stared into the darkness. Her thoughts loud and painful. In the morning, he woke up, stretched, and looked at her, still in the same spot. Still awake, still silent. He said nothing, only walked past her and placed a fruit on the table. She looked at it, then at him. Slowly, she crawled forward, picked it up and sniffed it. It smelled sweet, like something from her past. She bit into it, just a little, and chewed slowly. Then her eyes met his. He smiled, just a little, and said, "See? Not poison." She tilted her head, confused. That was the first time he smiled at her, and she didn't know how to react. So she looked away. Later that day, he tried speaking again. "My name is Ray," he said, pointing to himself. "Ray?" Then he pointed to her. "You?" She stayed quiet, eyes narrowed. But he kept trying. He showed her a spoon, said, "Spoon," pointed at a chair. Chair pointed at the ship's window. Stars, she watched, not speaking, not moving. But something inside her began to shift. This human. He was not like the others. He didn't shout, didn't force her, didn't treat her like a thing. He just spoke, waited, and gave her space. That night, the ship floated near a quiet moon. Ray worked on the engines while soft music played from a small speaker. She walked around slowly, exploring the ship's narrow halls. She touched buttons, looked at the blinking lights, and found a mirror. She stared at her own reflection, hair wild, face thin, eyes hollow. She didn't recognize herself anymore. Then she saw something strange in the reflection. Ray standing behind her, holding a soft towel. He didn't come close, just placed it on a table and walked away. She picked it up slowly, and for the first time in a long time, cleaned her face. Later, she sat near him while he fixed the ship's screen. Still silent, still guarded, he didn't look at her, but said gently, "You're safe here." She didn't respond, but her body relaxed, just a little. As the lights dimmed and the stars outside danced quietly, she looked at him again, and this time she whispered something. A single word in a strange, broken voice. "Why?" Ray turned his head slowly, eyes wide. She had spoken. Not much, not clear, but it was something. The wall between them had cracked, and now something new was beginning. The girl had spoken only one word. It wasn't much, but to Ray, it was a sign, a spark. He didn't push her for more. He didn't ask questions, he just let her be. But the wildness inside her had not disappeared. It lived in her like fire under ice. The next morning, she walked into the kitchen corner of the ship, curious, quiet. The cleaning robot rolled toward her on small wheels. Humming a soft tune, it tried to scan her face. She grabbed it and smashed it into the wall. Ray came running. The robot's parts were scattered across the floor. Sparks flying. She stood over it, chest rising and falling. Fists tight. Ray didn't shout. He looked at her and said, "Okay." No robots then began picking up the pieces without another word. Later, the food machine offered her a plate. A long metal arm pushed forward to serve a fresh meal. She stared at it with narrow eyes. Then, without warning, she yanked the arm, twisted it, and snapped it like a twig. Metal groaned. Steam hissed. Alarms beeped. She dropped the broken parts and walked away. Ray sighed, pulling out his toolkit again. "Okay," he muttered. "No machines with arms either." She moved through the ship like a storm. She growled at the shower water, kicked the doors, and even bit a pillow. But one thing was strange. She never attacked Ray. Not even once. He would sit near her, hand her fruit, or offer a blanket. She would take it with stiff fingers. Always watching him, her eyes were still wild. But not afraid not of him. She had every chance to hurt him. But she didn't. She fought everything. Except him. One night, she found a mirror again. This time, she didn't break it. She stared for a long time, touching her own face. She whispered words he couldn't understand, soft and broken. Then she punched the wall beside it, not the mirror. Just the wall. Ray heard the thud and came quickly. He saw her knuckles bleeding, her jaw tight, her back shaking. She didn't cry, but he saw the pain, not just from the wound, but from somewhere deeper. He brought her a med kit, opened it slowly, and sat on the floor. She watched him, eyes sharp, but didn't move. He gently reached for her hand. She didn't stop him. He cleaned the cut, placed a soft band around it, then looked up and said, "You don't have to fight anymore." Her lips trembled. But she didn't reply. She pulled her hand back and walked away. But that night, for the first time, she sat closer to him, not beside, not touching. Just closer. The next day, Ray took out a small screen and showed her pictures. Images of different worlds, cities, skies, oceans, forests. He pointed at each one and said their names. Earth, Mars, Delta 5. She tilted her head, eyes softening just a little. Then she pointed to one. A green world with 2 moons and red clouds. She placed her finger on it and whispered a word low and painful. Home. Ray looked at the screen. Then at her. "That's where you're from?" he asked. She nodded. Just once, he began typing right away. Searching maps, scanning old files. There was nothing. The world she pointed to didn't exist in any current charts. It had been wiped, forgotten, or hidden. But Ray knew now she wasn't just some lost creature. She had a home, a past, maybe even a family. Later that evening, a strange sound echoed through the ship. A message distorted in an alien voice. She froze when she heard it. Her skin pale, her body tense. Ray turned up the volume. The voice said something she understood. She shook her head, whispered something over and over. Then, suddenly, she screamed and threw the screen across the room. It shattered. Ray rushed to her, but stopped when she raised her hand. She wasn't angry at him. She was afraid. He sat down, kept his voice calm. What did it say? She closed her eyes, breathed deeply, then opened them. Her voice cracked, but she spoke. "They're looking for me." Ray's jaw tightened. "Who's looking?" She looked at the stars through the window, then back at him. "The ones who took me. They will find us." He stood up, walked to the control panel, and began setting a new course. "We'll stay hidden," he said. She stared at him, confused. "You're not leaving me?" He turned back, meeting her eyes. "No," he said. "You didn't fight me, so now I'll fight for you, and for the first time." She didn't look like a wild alien girl. She looked like someone who wanted to believe him. Asterisk, the ship floated quietly through deep space. Far from any known path, Ray had changed direction, shut off outside signals, and moved into dead zones where no scanners could follow. But even in silence, danger still followed them inside her. The girl had stopped fighting the ship. She no longer kicked walls or destroyed machines. She ate the food he gave her, drank water, and sometimes sat in the pilot seat beside him. She still didn't smile, but her eyes had changed. They were no longer full of fire. Now they were full of weight, heavy. Unspoken stories buried deep. One evening, Ray found her sitting in the engine bay, shivering. The room wasn't cold, but she was. Her hands were around her knees, her face pale, her breath short. He rushed over, knelt beside her, and reached out. She flinched, her arms tightening as if expecting pain. He froze, raised both his hands slowly to show he meant no harm. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe." She didn't answer, but she didn't move away either. Ray took off his coat and wrapped it around her shoulders. She looked at him for a moment, then let her head fall against the wall, exhausted as she leaned forward slightly. The coat slipped. That's when Ray saw them. Long, deep scars across her back, not from battle, not from wild fights. No, these were different, organized, marked, burned into her skin like brands. Some were shaped like chains, others like symbols from an unknown language, painful memories written into her flesh. He didn't say anything, didn't ask, didn't gasp. He just sat down beside her and lowered his eyes. After a long moment, she spoke, low and broken, like her voice was crawling through glass. "They did this," she said. Ray didn't speak, just waited. "They took me from my home," she continued. "They called me a creature, a beast, not a person." She touched one of the old scars, fingers shaking. "This one was because I tried to speak." Her voice cracked. "I just wanted to tell them my name." Ray's fists curled without thinking. Not at her, but at the ones who had done this. He kept his voice calm, but firm. "They were wrong," he said. "You're not a beast." She looked at him again, and for the first time, her eyes filled with water, not fire. Tears slid down her cheeks, slow and silent. Ray handed her a cloth, but she didn't take it. Instead, she leaned her head lightly against his shoulder. He let her stay there. Neither of them spoke for a while. Later that night, Ray sat alone in the cockpit, staring at the map. He couldn't sleep. Her scars haunted him. He zoomed into the sector where she had pointed before the green planet with 2 moons and red clouds. Still no name, no records, no roots. Wiped from history. But why? Then he saw ITAN old warning tag, buried in old files. Forbidden zone, sealed by order of the council. No details. No reason, just a command to stay away. That planet had been erased. But she remembered it. It was her home. Ray saved the location under a new name, her world. He would find a way to take her back, no matter what it cost, the next day. She helped him clean the ship. She didn't speak much. But she watched and copied what he did. She wiped screens, folded cloths, even fixed a broken light. Her hands were steady. Focused, not wild anymore. She was still guarded, but learning that evening. While they sat near the small dining table, Ray showed her a datapad. It had pictures of different alien symbols. He pointed to one. She shook her head. Another, same reaction. Then he found one that matched the shape burned on her shoulder. She froze, stared at it, then looked away. That's the mark of the Harkoon Syndicate, Ray said. She nodded slowly. They're slavers, he added. She whispered. They burn names into bodies and sell people like pets. Ray looked at her gently. Do you remember your real name? She was silent for a long time, then nodded once. He waited. But she didn't say it. Not yet. She wasn't ready. Instead, she looked out the window. At the stars passing by like soft lights in the dark. Home, she said again. Then she turned to him. If I take you there, they'll hunt us. Ray smiled. Just a little. They're already hunting, he replied. But now I have something to fight for. She didn't smile back. Not yet, but her eyes stayed on his face longer this time. And for the first time, she didn't look like someone lost. She looked like someone beginning to believe she could be found. The stars outside Ray's ship looked peaceful. But inside the ship, a storm was building. She had scars on her skin, fear in her eyes, and a name she still hadn't spoken. But now, she was no longer just a mystery. She was a target. Ray had found the truth. The Harkoon Syndicate had put a bounty on her high. Urgent and deadly. She wasn't just a runaway. She was stolen property in their eyes. They wanted her back. And they didn't care if she came back dead. The warning came through a scrambled message. Ray picked it up from an old trading channel. Bounty active, the voice said. Target, wild female, unknown species, extreme risk. High reward, last seen with human male. Then coordinates followed coordinates close to where they were hiding. Ray turned off the screen and looked at her. She had heard it, every word. Her face was pale again, her body stiff. They found us, she whispered. Her voice was small, but her eyes were full of panic. Ray nodded slowly. They're close, he said. But we still have time. She looked away. Hands shaking. They will kill you, she said. They kill helpers first. He stood up and grabbed his blaster. I've been in worse fights, he said with a calm voice. She stared at him like he was mad. Why? She asked, why risk your life for me? Ray looked at her for a long time. You never hurt me, he said, even when you could have. I know there's more to you than chains and scars. You're not property. You're a person. She blinked. Then looked down. No one had ever said that to her before. The alarm rang 2 hours later. Red lights flashed across the ship's halls. Something was coming fast, too fast for a normal ship. Ray checked the screen, heart pounding, to hunters. Sharp and dark, engines glowing like fire. Hold on, he said, turning the ship sharply to the left. She grabbed the side of the wall. Steadying herself, lasers fired behind them. Missing by inches, The ship shook, but didn't break. Ray flew low through an asteroid field, dodging rocks and beams of light. The girl climbed into the co-pilot seat. Strapping in, he looked at her, surprised. "You sure?" She nodded once. "If they catch us." "They take me," she said. "I'd rather fight." Ray smiled without speaking. Together, they turned the ship between two giant rocks, causing one hunter to crash and explode. The second ship kept coming. Faster now, more focused. It hit Ray's ship with a laser blast, small, but strong smoke filled the control room. Sparks flew, alarms screamed. Ray coughed and pulled the ship down toward a nearby moon. "We'll land and fight on the ground," he said. Better odds. She stood up and grabbed a long staff from the wall. Her hands moved like she'd held weapons before. Ray handed her a small shield device. "Push the red button when they shoot," he said. She nodded again. The ship crash-landed in the dust of the moon. Metal grinding, fire burning. Ray and the girl jumped out just as the second hunter ship landed nearby. 3 armored bounty hunters stepped out, tall and fast, weapons glowing. "There she is." One shouted, "She's worth a fortune." Ray raised his blaster, standing in front of her. "You'll have to go through me first," he said. The hunters laughed. One fired, but the girl moved. Fast like wind, she used the shield, blocked the shot, and hit him in the face with the staff. He fell back, groaning. Another rushed her. But she dodged, kicked, and broke his weapon in half. Ray shot the third, clean and quick. Dust settled, bodies fell. Silence returned. She stood in the middle, breathing hard, covered in dirt and smoke. Ray walked to her side. His arm burned, his leg shaking. She looked at him with wide eyes. "You stayed," she said, almost in disbelief. "You fought for me." Ray smiled through the pain. "Told you I would." She took a deep breath, stepped closer. Then did something she had never done before. She touched his hand, gently, not with fear, not with panic, with trust, as the sun of the moon began to rise. She looked at the sky, then at him. "They'll send more," she said. "I know," Ray answered. "But next time?" "We'll be ready," she nodded, and for the first time a small, broken smile appeared on her face. Not big, not perfect, but real, and somewhere deep inside her. Something began to change. She was still wild, still wounded, but now she was no longer alone. Asterisk smoke still rose from the battlefield on the dusty moon. Ray's ship was broken, one engine fried, one wing twisted. He sat against a rock, breathing hard. Blood on his sleeve. Beside him, she stood like a silent warrior. Staff in hand, eyes sharp, face calm, but her hands trembled just a little. They had won the fight, but the message was clear. The hunters would return, stronger, faster, crueler. They would never stop until they took her back or killed them both. Ray looked up at her, forcing a small smile. "Next time?" "We hit first," he said. She nodded, but her eyes were somewhere far away. "I don't want to run anymore," she said softly. "I want to go home." Ray tapped his wrist device, showing the marked planet, again her world. Still no name, no path, but it was there, hidden, forgotten, but real. "Then that's where we go," he said. The next 2 days were hard. They rebuilt the ship using scrap from the hunter's vessel. She worked beside him, no longer a stranger. She used tools, carried metal, fixed wires. When Ray's hands shook from pain, she steadied them without a word. They shared food, water, silence, but this silence was different. It wasn't cold anymore. It was comfort, finally. The ship rose again, shaking but flying. They left the moon behind and entered the dark edge of space. She sat beside Ray, staring ahead as if she could already see her planet waiting. But peace didn't last long. A red alert blinked on the screen. Loud and sharp, "Ship approaching," Ray said. He checked the sensors. His jaw tightened. It wasn't hunters. It was worse. A cruiser from the Harkonnen Syndicate, big, black, full of weapons and soldiers. They had tracked her signal, hidden in her blood. And now they had found her again. "They're jamming us," Ray said. "We can't jump." The cruiser fired a warning blast, shaking their ship. "Prepare for surrender," a voice boomed, cold and cruel. "Give up the stolen subject or be destroyed." She looked at Ray, her voice steady. "They'll never let you live." He nodded, eyes locked on hers. "Then we don't let them win." Ray handed her a laser pistol. She grabbed her staff, eyes burning now, not with fear, but with fury. "They took everything," she whispered. "They called me a thing. No more." Ray flew low into a nearby asteroid belt, dodging blasts, engines howling. The cruiser followed, but slowly, too big to move fast. That gave them time. Inside the ship, she moved like lightning. She powered the shields, prepared traps, set bombs in the escape pod just in case. Ray turned to her and said, "If I don't make it," she stopped him with a look. "No," she said. "We both make it, or none." The enemy ship fired again. Hitting the tail, flames burst, alarms screamed. Ray landed roughly on an asteroid surface, hiding in the shadow, but they were outnumbered, outgunned, and out of time. Then she stood, took a deep breath, and spoke words in her old language. Her voice strong, steady, powerful. "What did you say?" Ray asked. "My name," she answered. "I said my name." He looked at her with soft eyes. "Will you tell me?" She nodded. "Kaliri," she said. "My name is Kaliri." Ray smiled. "That's a good name." The Harkonnen soldiers broke into the ship. Heavy boots shaking the floor, Cagliari stood in front of them, unarmed. They laughed until she attacked. Her body moved like lightning. Staff, spinning, striking, blocking. Ray covered her from behind, blasting soldiers left and right. They fought as one, back to back, like they had done it 100 times before. Cagliari was hit once, twice, but she didn't fall. Blood on her arm, pain in her chest, but her eyes stayed strong. She kicked a soldier into a wall and shouted in their language, "I am not yours, I am not a thing. I am free." Ray pulled her into the cockpit. "Set the final course. The shields won't hold," he said. "Just get us close," she said, and he did. The ship burst through the edge of the asteroid field, straight into jump space, explosions behind them. Systems failing, Cagliari bleeding. Ray barely conscious, but they made the jump. They vanished from the Syndicate's reach for now. Inside the shaking ship, Cagliari collapsed. Ray caught her, shouting her name. She looked up at him, her voice weak. "You kept your promise," she said. He held her close. "You're not going back," he whispered. "Not ever." And as she closed her eyes, she smiled again, not because she was safe, but because someone had finally fought for her freedom, never gave up. The ship came out of jump space with sparks flying. One engine was dead, lights flickered, and the metal hull groaned like it was crying. Ray kept one hand on the controls and the other wrapped around Cagliari. She was barely conscious, her body shaking, her blood soaking through his shirt. He landed the ship on a green planet soon, hidden, marked only on old maps as a forbidden zone. But Cagliari had known it by heart. 2 moons hung above a purple sky. and red clouds floated low across endless green fields. She had found her way home, even if her body was breaking. Ray carried her out into the soft grass. Far from the wrecked ship, she opened her eyes weakly, the wind brushing through her tangled hair. "It's real," she whispered. "I thought they destroyed it all." He nodded, holding her tighter. "They couldn't erase everything." She pointed toward a broken stone in the distance, hidden under vines and moss. Ray carried her there, and as they reached it, Callery touched the surface with her fingers. Symbols lit up, glowing softly. Pulsing with ancient energy, the stone opened, revealing a path down into the earth. They stepped into the ruins, old and silent, filled with carvings, colors, and symbols of her people. Callery stood on her own now, each step slow, but steady as they walked. Torches on the walls lit themselves one by one. The place recognized her. She was not a stranger here. She was part of it. They reached a chamber filled with crystal light. In the center stood a large stone circle covered in markings. Callery placed her hand on it, and the circle pulsed like a heartbeat. Then, from the shadows, figures appeared, tall, glowing. Wearing cloaks made of silver leaves, they looked at her, eyes wide. One of them stepped forward and spoke in a voice like thunder and wind. "Callery," she nodded, and the figure knelt before her. The others followed, bowing low. Ray stood frozen, confused. "What's happening?" He whispered. Callery turned to him, her face calm now, her voice stronger. "I wasn't just anyone," she said. "My family ruled this world before the Syndicate came. They killed our leaders, destroyed our cities, and told the galaxy we were gone. But I survived." She stepped into the center of the chamber, and the stone behind her changed, showing her face. Her people, her past. Ray watched in silence. The girl he had rescued, the one no one dared to bid for. The one treated like an animal, she was royalty. She was the last light of a fallen kingdom. The cloaked figures stood now, one of them holding out a small crown made of crystal and bone. Callery looked at it, then turned to Ray. "This world is mine," she said. "But I am not whole without you." Ray blinked, unsure. "I'm just a pilot," he said. "You're a queen." She stepped closer, touching his hand. "You raised your hand when no one else did," she said. "You never lowered it. You didn't save a queen. You saved a person outside." The planet was waking up. Lights glowed under the surface. Trees shifted. Old machines came to life. Her people had been hiding, waiting for her return. Now they came out, dozens of them, stepping out of caves and ruins. Eyes full of tears and hope, they cheered when they saw her. Some dropped to their knees. Others raised their arms to the sky. Callery stood on a high rock, wind blowing through her hair. Staff in hand, she looked strong, fierce, and finally free. She turned to Ray and reached out her hand. He took it without a word, climbing to stand beside her. "They'll come again," he said. "The Syndicate won't stop." She nodded, eyes forward. "Then we'll stop them here." And so it began, not just the end of her escape, but the start of a war for freedom. For justice, for every voice that was silenced. Every name that was erased. The galaxy had forgotten her. But now it would remember. Not as a slave, not as a number, but as Callery, the queen who came back, and the human who never let go. Their story had begun in chains, but it would end in stars.